Okay, so designing a global culture of collaboration. Already there are excellent examples of global collaboration, and we'll look at some local collaborations as well later on. And of course, the best example to lean on is the uh, Paris Agreement under the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP21 in 2015, held in Paris. France committed to supporting a multilateral negotiations process and listening to all stakeholders to reach an agreement that is universal and legally binding, fair and differentiated, which means everybody has their part, but there is historical responsibilities assigned based on who emitted most and who needs transition time that's longer, let's say for HFCs or for reducing carbon emissions and creating additional carbon sources and so on. Sustainable and dynamic. So the agreement would be sustainable and dynamic. What emerged, of course, is more democratic than the Kyoto Protocol in terms of nationally determined contributions to the goals. There are lots of arguments already that these are not sufficient to meet the 2 degree C warming target and so on. But after the first verification period, which will happen, I think, in 2023, and in a few years when we realize that our emission trajectories are on the highest scenario that the IPCC assumes for the future, then of course there can be renegotiations and the commitments can be upped in terms of the speed with which reductions will happen, renewables will come along, and so on. So the major outcomes of COP, by the way, is Conference of the Parties, the tool that's used under the UNFCCC for negotiations. Every year they meet. This year it was postponed, I think, to Madrid. Maybe there was a virtual conference. I have to look it up. Nonetheless, 5 key elements of the Paris Agreement. Every 5 years, countries strengthen climate action. So even if we are behind, we can jig the commitments. Long-term goal to achieve net zero emissions. Net zero emissions. Okay, that's still not same as decarbonization, where the system has to move away from carbon, but net zero emissions doesn't mean there will be zero emission, but there will be carbon taken out that is emitted. So anything that we emit that is inevitable will be taken out by technology like BECCS, carbon capture and sequestration, and various other methods. Adaptation is a central pillar to help world's most vulnerable. Climate finance to support developing countries. All of these things are being tried, and there are issues associated with them, but we will not get into that and focus on the fact that everything is being tried, and it is an excellent example of global cooperation. Enhanced transparency to ensure that commitments are met. 10,000 new climate initiatives, so 187 countries share the national climate plans, voluntarily committed to action. 127 plus million hectares of degraded land in Africa and Latin America is to be restored. $1 trillion in solar investments. 20 countries to double clean energy R&D. 400 plus cities to set targets that could cut urban emissions in half. We will look a little bit more at the cities and some amazing stories there as well of local accomplishments that we mentioned in the beginning in terms of the urban socialism in South America, for example. 114 plus companies will use science-based targets to set emission cutting goals. That's not bad. So the culture collaboration, the 2015 Bending the Curve report's third proposed solution focuses on designing a new culture of collaboration around climate change. The course is based on that report, which was converted into a book and a course. I'm directly using the book to create these podcasts. Deepen the global culture of climate collaboration. Design venues where stakeholders, community, and religious leaders converge around concrete problems with researchers and scholars from all academic disciplines, not just natural sciences, but also from social sciences, medicine, journalism, finance, management, and so on, with the overall goal of initiating collaborative actions to mitigate climate disruption. So this was obviously focused on UC system, but the way the course is set up, you can teach it and make it happen anywhere else. So I'm particularly trying to bring it to the developing world here. This is a paper that I was involved in, published in Nature Sustainability, talks about how universities are typically considered ivory towers, where scientists, engineers, humanities are divided here. You can see the hierarchy implied in this building here. And interdisciplinary research is big talk right now. I'm, for example, in a center called Earth System Science Interdisciplinary Center. There is need for convergence of research to happen, and there is the so-called well of uncertainty, which was defined in the 90s, where innovations can never make it to the market or to society because they never cross this valley of death or the well of uncertainty. So a lot of knowledge gets wasted over there, and co-production and transdisciplinary knowledge has to provide this bridge from these somewhat isolated university systems, which see themselves as the store of knowledge that needs to be imparted to the people who don't have knowledge, and get the practitioners and stakeholders the knowledge, and then focus on various issues like deforestation, clean energy, urbanization, environmental degradation, and so on. So this is much more focused on how to change the academic system and the incentives, the evaluations, the promotions, funding system, collaborations, and so on, to make them more relevant for this integral solution and be part of the culture of collaboration. So obviously the UC system and Bending the Curve is completely focused on that. So we'll look at the example of UC San Diego to see how they have actually set up living laboratories in communities, not in the university campus, in the communities, to give practical experience and create educational tools and awareness. So that's what is needed, and there are all the pieces that are in place: how to link them, how to make them effective, and how to produce information that is not only useful but usable, actionable. These are the new words being used in climate business as well. Okay?